Hey guys, this is the most impromptu video I've ever done and probably will ever do, but I am right in the situation currently, so I'm really thinking about it more and I want to share it with you guys because a lot of you are either police officers or you want to become police officers. Sorry, there's cars. And I want to show you as much as I can and be as real as I can with that. So last week, one of my coworkers and academy classmates committed suicide, and everybody was very shocked. I think everybody is kind of still in shock and disbelief. I was definitely not best friends with this person, but he was a great person and I enjoyed working with him. He was always so positive and so happy and smiling and just a great person to be around and work with. And my agency as a whole, we are hurting, and we're hurting. So there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about, and because they are very important to me even before this. So the first is mental health in law enforcement and how that can also tie in with suicide. We have a leadership course that we do when you make different ranks. When I made sergeant, I went through it, and this was in 2015. And we could pick our project. We had to pick a problem in law enforcement and talk about how we would solve that problem, what our solution would be. But the key to it was you had to have a solution. You had to fix it. So mine, again, was mental health and suicide in law enforcement. And when I actually did the research on, because I remember since being a police officer, I had heard so much that, oh, you know, police officers commit suicide all the time, public safety commits suicide all the time, but I didn't actually know. I had just heard that. When I did my project, we hadn't experienced what a suicide would be like on our department. We didn't know, that wasn't something that had happened, but I had always felt like that's something that would eventually come. And I think that sometimes that is with wherever you are or wherever you will work. When I actually did the research and looked at the data on police officers committing suicide compared to non-police officers, but still in that same average demographic age and group, I actually found that police officers were not committing suicide as often as those that were in the same demographic group. It was close, but it was not as often as the others who were not police officers. And I was shocked by this because I had seen and heard so much about, again, police officers committing suicide and mental health and law enforcement. And this is with data prior to 2015. So keep in mind, that's what I was working with. So one thing that I had heard a lot as a police officer was that police officers kill themselves at a higher rate than other people kill us. And that is true. When you look at the data, you have more suicides than line of duty death for different years. It varies, but that is frequently the case when you go back and you look at it year by year. But I hadn't heard much information on that compared to general population suicide. So either it doesn't matter that it is closer or average, and in fact in that research and paper I brought up, you know, you have to complete a psychological evaluation to even be hired into this job. So we really need to still be worried because we are hiring the most mentally competent people that we can find. What other jobs are you having to pass a psychological evaluation to do that job? I'm sure there are some, but that is very significant. So we should have the most mentally sound people. What is happening and why Are we killing ourselves after we become police officers? So there was a lot of different things that I found within that research, and then different things I had experienced as a police officer. You're going to horrible scenes and situations. You're seeing dead bodies, you're seeing death, you're seeing abused children, you're seeing all kinds of horrifying things that the general population is not exposed to every day, although there are other professionals, doctors, ER staff, anybody, nurses, anybody in emergency services are seeing these things as well. So clearly there's a lot going on there, and I think that's a lot for just a person to process. I think it's important too to discuss with law enforcement that not only do you have the calls that you're going on and the horrible things that you're seeing and experiencing and witnessing in these calls, you also deal with a lot of organizational stress and things that don't function properly, don't work properly, are not efficient, and different ways that people are administratively stressed, or things that they go through administratively. And it is a very hard thing for people to deal with, and it is extremely stressful, and it is also a situation in which people have little to no power or control over. I don't know what was happening in my classmate's head at the time. I don't know what he was thinking, but I can say that I hope anybody who is so upset or has that feeling that they want to commit suicide, I really hope that you reach out to someone. And before and after this video, I will have information and down below for different suicide hotlines and law enforcement suicide hotlines. I really want people to reach out if they can find that within themselves to do that. Because there are so many people, no matter who you are, who want you to be here and who want you to be a part of their life and a part of their work and their job and their friend. And they want you there, and you're needed there. One final thing I just want to mention really quickly about this specific person was that in our second phase of that leadership training, we actually became peer support representatives. We went through the training to become peer support representatives in our state, actually, and then you could also do that through the department if you so wished, because it was part of our training process. I had that training class with him, and in it we had to talk about, in front of the group, one of the worst things that happened to us in our lives. And I'm not going to share his because that's not my story to share, but for me it was finding out I had cancer and how I was treated and how that was handled in my agency. And it was not handled well, in my opinion. It was by a few people, but not by the ones who had that control and power at the time. Some of them. Others were very caring. So I mention that because after this class, I walked out. This is the day that we shared our stories. I walked out, and I have a pretty good friend who I was in that class with, so she and I were walking out together, and we were talking about that and our family and stuff like that. And my classmate, the one who we just lost last week, made a point to like track me down. He's like, "Oh, Melissa, I gotta talk to you before you leave." He made a point to come to me and say, "You know, I had no idea you were going through that, and I'm upset about that because you're my classmate." And we're supposed to be there for each other. And that was so caring and thoughtful of him to say. And it wasn't like he texted me or called me later. He made a point to stop me and the other friend I was talking to and would like look me in the eye and say, I wish I would have known. I wish you would have told me. I wish I would have known that was happening to you. And I could have been there to support you, done anything that you would have needed, or just listened to you or known that that was happening. So now to think about what he had to have been going through, and I've had discussions with my other classmates too about this, how bad we wish he would have just talked to us about it. We're always available to each other when we need each other, and you'll see, or you know, in law enforcement, it's very much so like that. This becomes like a family to you, and I just think back how he was so adamant on, you know, telling me, like, if you're going through something, I want to know about it. I want you to tell me about it. And I know that myself and others, we just wish that we would have known what he was going through and done anything we could have to do whatever he needed to help him. I feel very cared about and supported by my agency and my classmates and all of our other officers. Everybody is calling and texting and checking on everyone. I just wanted to create this video because I had never specifically talked about or discussed suicide on my channel, and it is very front and center right now. And to those of you who are interested in law enforcement, please keep your communication channels open to everybody. People care about you, and those in law enforcement too, obviously. People really care about you, and you matter to them, and they want you there. And I just hope that people can reach out. I wish people would reach out if they were having trouble or needed to talk to someone or were thinking about committing suicide. So like I said, there will be links and information on here. Again, I feel very cared about and supported by my agency, my classmates, and just so many people. I really hope we can work on doing even more to try to prevent this in the future. If you think that this could help anybody else, please send it to them. If you know of anybody who might need help, please have them reach out to those different hotlines that are available and resources that are available.